Khali from the Facebook world, and welcome to our coffee chat. This gentleman over here decided to grace us with his presence. Not that it's necessary, because I am always the ever so willing and fabulous host, Khali Maswani. Daniel Kazadi, how are you, sir?
Oh, good. How are you doing, Khali?
I am good. How was your weekend?
Good, huh? It's been a while since I've been on the coffee chat, huh?
It's been a long while.
Since I got fired.
I mean, fired is a strong word. Since you got replaced with a better version. But yeah, so how was your weekend?
Oh, my weekend was quite good. Looking at certain deals with a few partners, actually looking to purchase our first student accommodation, which is quite interesting.
Okay.
And I'd like to find out, is anyone investing in student accommodation at the moment in Johannesburg? Just out of interest, okay? But my week was quite cold as well. And how's your weekend?
My weekend was calm. Just filled with reading, preparing for our upcoming events, which you're going to tell us about a little bit later. But it was mostly just very calm, collected. It's cold, so you can't really play outside with other people's children. Yeah,
I can imagine. But let us know where you are joining us from. Hey, is it Cape Town? Is it Johannesburg, Durban? Let us know. Which it's always interesting to find out where our views are. Hey, which is always good.
It is, and obviously, I need Joburg people to start acting right, because the first person I can bet money that is going to be Cape Town. And it always upsets me to my core, because then it just means Cape Town is more amazing than us, which is not true. So Joburgans, please, even Bloemfontein, it doesn't matter as long as it's not Cape Town. The first person can't be Cape Town, please, guys. However, yes, please tell us where you're from and where you're joining us.
Definitely, and I think it might be time to go through events. We've got quite a few interesting events, but ladies and gents, for those that are joining us, we are talking about young professionals. Should you be renting or buying a property in 2023? Which is a question you had the pleasure of answering with Zydo, or did you guys have a different angle? Huh?
We had a different angle, because it was essentially, when you are going to purchase your first property, how would you like it to be? Would you like it to be an investment property or your primary residence? And it's actually a topic we're going to be discussing more in depth for our upcoming ABSA event. However, this one is as young professionals for the youth. Are we more inclined, is it better to rent and or to buy? So it's a bit of a different angle.
Yeah, definitely. So just looking at events, this week, Wednesday on the 17th of May, we are having our premier event. So only open for professional and intermediate members in Johannesburg. It will be around auctions. Hey, Khali, do you want to tell us a bit about the events? I know you guys have some cool plans for pro members and intermediate members.
So to our pro and intermediate members, it's going to be an amazing event on Wednesday. And what it is, essentially, we want to unpack auctions, both from the perspective of an investor, as to you to understand what is it that you guys need to be looking out for, what is it that you need to know, understand, how does it work, and all facets, both public auctions and sheriff's auction. But also we're going to be having a representative from the bank who is going to show you as a patron how to avoid auctions, right? You do not want to be in an auction. That's not where we want to be. However, we're going to be covering all facets of that, and that's going to be on our premier and public event at Tile Africa Greenstone. But unfortunately, it is only for intermediate and professional members.
Geez, unfortunately, but it will be awesome to network with our members and just find out what everyone is doing. I do see Deborah Pierce in the comment section. She's not in Cape Town though. Which is an area close to Cape Town.
Comes by already. It's Western Cape, so it's still not the way, but it's fine. It's fine.
We'll take it.
Joburgians, what do you call people from Bloemfontein? Bloemfonteinians.
I think it's people from Bloem. We'll go with that.
Yes, everybody just let us know where you're watching us from. We'd love to hear from you.
Perfect. And on the 18th, just looking at events, on the 18th of May, we are having our legal and coaching group coaching session. So it's for all of our members. So whether you're an intermediate professional, foundation, SAP and youth, or you just have a course with us, every single month we get our legal team. We will be hearing from Tuma a bit later. Our legal team and all of our experts in the room, or online in this case, answering all your property questions. So if you do have questions, make sure you are up to date with the different events. And then afterwards, on the 23rd of May with Mark Berman, we are having a a webinar all around developments. What are the top 10 things you need to know if you're going to go out there and do a development? So it's going to be interesting hearing from an expert like Mark Berman, who has over 20 years experience developing properties all across South Africa. If you are keen, please ensure that you keep up to date with our events page and register for all the events. And on the 24th of May, which is what I'm super excited about, we are having a Sapin Youth cocktail event, only open to young professionals, unfortunately, between the ages of 22 all the way to 34. So I had to fight that battle. All around, should your first property be renting or buying in 2023? And we will have different panelists discussing the different things. So yeah, that's it from events point of view, Khali. Huh?
Oh, fantastic. I'm very happy that I'm still part of young professionals and youth. Hey now, because Daniel wanted it to cut off at 25, and I feel like that's just dishonest. However, we have Jerry Skosana, who's from Kenya. I will take Kenya as the first one. I feel like Hans by just no. But we also have Eric, as always, who is watching us from Cape Town. So, ladies and gentlemen, Daniel did mention a bit earlier on that we have amazing guests who are going to help us unpack this topic of conversation, which is, as a young professional, not even young, just as a human being in general, which one is better currently in 2023? Is it better to rent or is it better to buy? And I have amazing guests that are going to be helping us unpack that. So whatever questions you have, please put them in the chat box, and we'll make sure that our guests actually answer those questions. So I'm going to actually send off to these amazing individuals and ask them to introduce themselves. The first one is Tuma and Natasha. How are you guys this afternoon?
How's it, guys? All good on my side, but chilly here in Joburg. I'm a Joburger.
Yay!
Thank you.
Fantastic. And Kuma, how are you?
Good, thank you, and yourself, guys. There, I'm also in Joburg.
Suddenly we just muted.
Suddenly we cannot hear you, Kuma.
Okay. Let's start it again. How's it going, Kuma?
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes. There we go.
Oh, okay, all right, awesome. I'm doing good, guys. I'm also in Joburg, specifically in Sunning Hill, and it is very, very chilly. But happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me once again.
Okay, fantastic. So we'll start off with the ladies, just because we can. So Natasha, do you want to just introduce yourself briefly to our audience and what exactly it is that you do?
Yes, thanks, guys. Firstly, for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I am the regional sales manager at Uber Home Loans. So obviously I specialize in bonds. So that's home loan finance. But obviously we encounter all manner of scenarios. So we've seen both sides of the transactions, buying to invest, renting as opposed to buying, and different types of purchasing structures and the methodology behind them.
Oh, definitely. And I think just to highlight the importance of them, normally buyers do not pay you a cent. You represent buyers, negotiate on their behalf to banks, better interest rates. So for anyone that does not have Natasha's contact details or any of the team, they're amazing. Huh?
Yes, they are absolutely phenomenal. And then Toma, if you could just briefly introduce yourself to our viewers.
Right, thank you, Khali. So I'm a paralegal at Bruno Simao Attorneys. Specifically, I'm in the litigation and alternative dispute resolution department. And what we do here at Bruno Simao Attorneys is basically we, from a legal perspective, and more specifically property law, we take care of the interests of property investors, developers. We also do conveyancing and transfer of properties. So generally we deal with litigation, property law, commercial law, and a bit of tax as well. So yeah, that is what we do with property law, real estate law for investors, estate agents, and landlords, etc.
Fantastic. So Natasha, as we get started, I mean, we all understand that human beings need shelter. I think that's clear, it's understood. But I wanted to understand from you, because we're discussing renting versus buying. So obviously there is the concept of should it be a primary home or investment property? What would you say the difference is in terms of bond financing between investment properties and actual primary residence? And is there a difference?
So the short answer is yes, there is a difference. So when we submit the application, we are going to declare the intentions of that property. Is it going to be our main residence? Is it going to be a second home? Or is it going to be an investment property? So certain loan to value criteria might apply. So the bank might say, right, if you're buying for an investment, we'd require 10% deposits just to mitigate our risk, especially when we're putting through projected rental income as a way that we are going to cover that monthly repayment. Because there are slightly, it's a slightly riskier transaction because you are placing affordability on a third party. So remember, if you're buying for investment, you always have to run your numbers carefully and prepare for certain periods of perhaps non-payment or non-tenanted times.
That's actually very informative, because it ties into what I would like to ask Tuma, and it's in the context of, because he deals with the legal side of it. So Tuma, would you say, if you're buying a property, right, would it be better to buy it in a company or in your personal name? Because we've all been taught you need to own a property as in me as a person.
So thank you, Khali. So as we probably know it, most of us know it, is that in South Africa, there's 3 forms or entities that you can own a property. And that is essentially a company, a natural person, or a trust. But for the purpose of today's discussion, we'll deal more with the company or natural person. So it all boils down to your strategy, Khali, which means, why are you buying the property? Right? Are you buying this property for it to be your primary residence, for it to be your holiday home, or is it going to be an investment property? Right? Is this property, are you going to be selling this property in the next 10 to 20 years? Right? Or will this property actually change also its use in the next coming years? So it's all about structuring what the goal of the property is. That's where then you would then look at the tax liability of each, the advantages, the disadvantages, what the legal implications are of owning this property in all those different types of vehicles. And also from an administrative perspective, which one is easier or harder to own in which vehicles. So depending on what the answers are to that question, you would then move on to the second part, which is which vehicle is it to own your property in, a company or in your natural capacity as a person.
So depending on whether you want it to be a primary residence or not, will dictate which one would probably be best for you. So before I ask you my next question, Natasha, I just want to urge all of our viewers that please put your questions in the chat box, right? This is not often that we have such, expertise with us. So if you have any questions in terms of the legalities of renting versus buying and or renting out your property, you can ask that to Tuma or Natasha in terms of bond financing. So just put that in there. Natasha, I've always wanted to know, in terms of, either buying an investment property or buying a property for your primary residence, you have explained that there is actually a difference. But then in that, which then would be more likely to be financed?
So I think the primary residence is more likely to be financed, not to say that buying an investment property, particularly if it is your first purchase, is less likely to be financed. But the bank will obviously, post NCA, prioritize affordability above all else, above collateral, above general balance sheets. Can you service that bond on a monthly basis? And it just statistically turns out that people buying their primary residence are more likely to be able to afford it independent of any third-party kind of rental income factor. So it becomes slightly less risky. But as a first-time buyer and as a young professional, whether you decide to put a tenant in your first property and have it kind of cover that bond cost from day one, or whether you decide to leave the nest or your flat share or wherever you currently are and go it alone, I think it depends very much on your situation and what you want to achieve, both long-term and short-term.
So just doubling down on that, when you mentioned that you can obviously then turn your property into an investment property, would then you need to state that you're going to make it an investment property in future in terms of trying to get finance? Or do you then say, no, it's my primary residence, I can afford it. However, later on, I'm going to essentially try to get a tenant to off-share the bond costs?
If we're basing the application on your current income exclusively, and as a first-time buyer, we would be, because you wouldn't have any other rental income generating properties. We needn't specify what our long-term plan is. We can just say purchasing for primary residence, because things can change between registration and purchase.
Okay, no, that's great. So, Tuma, I would like to know then, in terms of being first-time buyers who are interested in buying property, and moving from renting, are there any incentives in terms of, buying something in your personal name versus buying it in a company?
So definitely, Khali. So there would be definitely advantages as to buying in your in you as a natural person, or in a company name. So obviously, buying a home as a natural person is the most common form that we know out there, right? And then in this case, this means that the home will be registered in your name as an individual, without it representing any other legal entity, right? So when purchasing a property as a natural person, transfer duty will then be paid according to the sliding scale, depending on the price, or on the price of the property, obviously. And the price of that is something that you can find on the Uber Home Loans calculator there, maybe under tools and resources under our website as well. So the main difference when it comes to obviously buying a property in your company, or a natural person, is that the main benefit as an individual is that paying a capital gains tax can be avoided if you're buying as a natural person, right? Provided that the property obviously is is your primary residence. Now, the definition then of primary residence is obviously as Natasha has stated, right? But the downside of this form of ownership then is that it only arises if you, as someone who runs their own business, then if you run into financial difficulties, sorry, Khali, then the property is at risk of being targeted by creditors, right? So what this means is that any properties that you own will then be prime targets for creditors who want to obviously mitigate their losses, right? Then another disadvantage is that if the property is not your primary residence, or is used then for a business, then it will then be obviously be exempted from capital gains tax, right? And then estate duty will also be payable upon your death. So when it comes to buying it as a natural person, two implications come into place. One being obviously the tax implications, and one then being the legal liability when it comes to creditors.
Okay, so that is actually quite interesting. I didn't know there was so many intricate, aspects in terms of, deciding whether you want to do it in a personal capacity or in a company. But I understand, Dan, you do also have questions?
Yeah. So for Natasha, understand your role allows you to represent clients, find them the best deals from the banks and what have you. For people that are looking to buy their first property, what other institutes, or would you say, I know FLISP is a good one you work with, especially for people buying their first home? What other institutes are there for young professionals to look at when looking to buy their first property?
So I think we're trying to, as a collective, encourage home ownership in South Africa. That's the dream, that's the individual goal. And as you say, FLISP is obviously very useful in assisting people, particularly with the main barrier to entry into the market, which is your transfer and your bond registration costs. So with the exception of a deposit, which is obviously always a good idea for various reasons, the costs that are associated upfront can really be a barrier to entry. So what the banks have done is they've all come on board in some capacity and come to market with what's called a cost-inclusive product. Now we have to be very careful when we quote when we use the wording cost-inclusive, because generally it's about 5% over and above the purchase price, and that could still leave us with Chuma, you'll confirm, could still leave us with a shortfall. Usually the total costs amount to about 7 or 8%. But it is certainly a substantial amount in terms of helping us take that first step on the property ladder. So different banks have got different rules, and that's why you have to align yourself with a bond originator like Uber, who know all the bank's rules, so we can position that application to see the best outcome at the end of the day. So if we can generate the costs inclusive in that home loan, we don't have to waste time. Potentially, if we've been attached to an opportunity, we don't have to waste time saving for those costs in order to make the deal happen.
Okay, that's very interesting. So, Guma, I just have one more question for you before we go into our viewers' questions, because I see already we have one. The one that I wanted to understand is, we do understand, as Natasha mentioned, that you can change, your primary residence into a rental property or investment property, and all you had to do was essentially mention in future what would you do with it. However, if you do have the capacity,
Have they gone?
what actually like property portfolio?
Oh,
I think we've lost them.
we've lost them.
Should we take over?
We should absolutely take over. So maybe until they come back, for our viewers, let me. Natasha mentioned flips, so let me perhaps just go into flips a bit more. For those of us who are wondering what is a flips, and this has got to do more specifically for your medium to low income households. Right now, what do I mean by medium to low income households? Is that if you as a home, right, or as a home have then an income between 3,500 rand to 22,000 rand, then you may qualify for what we call a FLISP. Now, a FLISP is a finance a linked individual subsidy program. All right. So what this does basically, it is a subsidy, right, with obviously some requirements, which is quite simple. If you meet the criteria for it, right, the government provides you with money that helps you buy a home. All right. And this subsidy does not need to be paid back, right? There is no catch. But once you have been approved from a home loan, you can then apply for a flip subsidy, at your local Department of Human Settlements office, right? Or by contacting the National Housing Finance Corporation. There are obviously some requirements. One of them is that you have to be a South African citizen. You have to be of the age of 18. And if you've benefited from a previous government housing program or subsidy, then you will be obviously disqualified, right? Then a third one is that you must be either married, cohabiting, or single with at least one dependent, right? And whilst we are on some of the advantages for first-time home buyers who are in the youth range in South Africa, Natasha did mention that there are obviously existing barriers when it comes to getting that first step in terms of owning a home. So the government did recently give us some good news, Natasha, and you will confirm this, that for first-time home buyers in South Africa now, right, there's been recently changes to transfer duties in South Africa, all right? And what this means is that this is good news for first-time home buyers, right? Because the bracket in transfer duty now has increased by 10% from March this year, right? So essentially, the first 1.1 million rand of any property purchase is now tax-free. So this then obviously this benefit changes a lot and encourages first-time home buyers who are then want to acquire that first property. All right. And another one is that I believe, Natasha, maybe you can touch on this, is that banks do now obviously offer 100% home loans for first-time home buyers, and in some instances might even cover a bit of the transfer fees as well.
Absolutely. So, as a cross section of all the bank's offerings, we can take we can take into account their general rule. If the client is a South African citizen and is salaried and is purchasing in their personal names, 100% bonds are on the table up to a purchase price of 5 million rand. So it's quite a high ceiling. T's and C's apply, as they always do. The ceiling will be slightly lower in terms of the bond plus cost, the 105% loans. The ceiling at most lenders there, also South African citizen, also salaried individual, would be 1.8 million. So you would definitely not be able to enjoy assistance with the fees above a 1.8 million rand purchase price, but certainly 100% bonds if you're able to save for the duty. Now, as you say, Chima, the duty is probably the biggest lump sum when it comes to a breakdown per line item of the costs associated with a new property. So, I mean, that's budget announcement, the budget speech, the outcome of that meeting in terms of raising the threshold for exemption is really a game changer for South Africans. Knowing what we do with ours on our data, that a lot of the activity is happening kind of at the early 1 millions and below.
Absolutely. We do see that Khali and Daniel are back with us, but they are still having a bit of technical difficulties. They're fixing the sound. So we'll just continue with the conversation until they've fully joined us. I have always wanted to run the coffee chat by myself. So this is an amazing opportunity now.
The dream come true.
It's the dream come true for me. So let me just perhaps while they're still
alrighty then. Come on. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Khali.
Awesome. I did not think we would still be having such atrocious technical difficulties in 2023. The last time I had these were horrible flashbacks from 2020 when we were all just trying to figure out technology for the first time. I am sincerely apologize for that. Literally, I cannot even explain. But Kuma, first of all, you are a traitor, because the betrayal of saying you have always wanted to host it. I knew it. I knew you were always getting for my job. However, again, apologies for that regarding our technical difficulties. But ladies and gentlemen, I am just going to be signing off. I want to say thank you very much to Natasha and to Kuma. You guys were amazing guests. And if you want to see them, you will be seeing them on the youth event that is upcoming. Our amazing speakers are also going to be part of it. So I want to say thank you so much and thank you for joining.